show of hands if that's possible, or you can give me a +1 in the chat. How many here have built an app in Power Apps? If you've built an app in Power Apps, just give me a thumbs up or a +1 in the chat. I have, so I'll put my thumbs up. All right, +1 from Monica. Thank you. Matthew, +1. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, three. Christian puts his hand up. Okay. All right, so we have around a few folks here who have built an application using Power Apps. How many here have leveraged Power BI? Power BI. If you've given me a +1, you got to give me again. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so more folks with Power BI. So okay, you've worked with Power Apps, you've worked with Power BI, and there are folks who have not raised their hands. Either they are shy or they have not done any work with the Power Platform. No problem. So let me go ahead and share my screen first. So let's go to start screen sharing, and let me pick my entire screen. So let me take this to extend mode. So I get both the screens. I can see the chat on one side. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, loading up. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. I will need a confirmation that you guys can see my screen. And the confirmation will have to come from... Okay,
yes, we see it. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and swap this to presenter mode. I want to save some bandwidth, so I'm going to stop my video and we'll just focus on the presentation. So the topic is Power BI integration with Power Apps and Power Automate. A little bit about me. My name is Reza Dorrani. I am a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I am also a Microsoft certified trainer. I work for a company called Catapult Systems based out of Texas in the United States. I also have a YouTube channel on which I video blog about all things M365, and that's my Twitter handle. So let's begin with understanding how we can integrate some of the key components of the Power Platform. But before that, a slide that probably you would have seen a lot if you would have attended any of the sessions around the Power Platform, be it a Microsoft event or a community event. This slide is all about the Power Platform. What is this platform about? This platform is a low-code platform that spans across Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, Azure, and standalone applications. And in this platform, there are 4 major services or pillars that are provided for us. The first one, and this is actually in the order in which these were released as well. The first one is Power BI, which allows us to analyze or visualize our data, no matter where our data lives, on premises or in the cloud. The second one is Power Apps, which allows us to build web and mobile apps in no time. This, once again, can connect to any data source of our choice, on premises or in the cloud. Then we have Power Automate, which allows us to build workflow automation scenarios. And the newest addition to the Power Platform family is Power Virtual Agents, which allows us to build intelligent chat bots. All of these 4 options, or all of these 4 services, have been built keeping citizen developers, business users in mind, folks who understand their business the best, so they can leverage these powerful tools to quickly create business solutions around analytics, app development, workflow automation, or building chatbots. Now, underneath these 4 services is the ability, first, to connect to data sources. And to do that, there's something known as data connectors. Through data connectors, you can connect to any data source of your choice. As of today, there are over 540 data sources or services that you can connect to through the data connectors. And you also have the ability to create something known as custom connectors, That's perfect for scenarios wherein the existing set of connectors doesn't cover your use case. Like any good platform, Microsoft Power Platform also has a data service that it exposes. That data service or data source is known as Microsoft Dataverse. Relational data, rich data types hosted in the cloud, specifically Microsoft Azure, scalable infrastructure. All of these are core capabilities of that data source. And finally, we have the artificial intelligence components that are provided to us, once again, in a low code experience that is known as AI Builder, that leverages, once again, Azure cognitive services at the back end. So this is a holistic view of what is available for us within the platform. And if we look at all of those four key components, Power BI, Power Automate, virtual agents, or Power Apps, the key here is our data. Everything starts and ends with our data, right? For Power BI to analyze or visualize content, we need to connect to data. For us to create workflow processes, it needs to be on some data points. For a user who's interacting with a chatbot and is trying to ask questions to get the response, we need to go and query our data sources. If I'm building a Power App so that the users can act on the data, they can create items, read items, delete items, it's all related to my data. So data is the heart or the key to this platform. And the other key about this platform is that the total is greater than the sum of its parts. That means you are not limited to one of the services that this platform provides. You can leverage multiple services together. Right in the center, we have Microsoft Dataverse. That's the data source that the platform provides, but that can be replaced with any other data source of your choice through the data connectors. So literally, you can connect to any data right there in the center circle, and around it, we have all our services. Power Apps to build our apps, Power BI to build dashboards, Flow to build automations. And we also have Power Virtual Agents, which allows us to build those chatbots. So integration is a very key aspect of this platform, and you can create some powerful and amazing experiences when you use these services together. And there are many reasons why you would use these services together, purely because if I have a Power App and I'm trying to visualize data, I don't have any options. If I'm trying to create a Power BI report and I need some workflow automation process, I have to use Power Automate. These services are designed keeping specific business scenarios or processes in mind. So they all have their own independent strong points. And when they all come together, they elevate that process further. So keeping these things in mind, let's talk about how we can integrate, or what are the integration options between Power BI and Power Apps. Now in Power BI, we add visuals or visualizations. And the way we do that is when we are creating the report, on the right-hand side on the top, and I'll show this in the form of a demo shortly, we have the ability to connect to our data and then add these rich set of visualizations that are provided for us. Bar charts, stacked bar charts, grids, pie charts, and a lot more. Now, one visual that is available in Power BI is called Power Apps, which gives us the ability to add a Power App directly inside a Power BI report. Now, why would I want to add a Power App inside a Power BI report? Why would I want to do that? Well, there could be numerous scenarios, and let's call out one of them. Anyone who has worked with Power BI, all the folks who raised their hands for Power BI, Power BI can do a lot of things around data visualization and analytics. But one thing Power BI cannot do is it cannot perform CRUD operations on your data. Now, what are CRUD operations? Creating, updating, deleting. It cannot perform actions on your data. The data that you connect in Power BI is always and always in read-only mode. Right? It's a read-only data set. I can create visualizations around it, but I cannot make modifications to the data. If I have built a business critical Power BI report that showcases my sales information from different stores, for example, And if I want the sales lead to come in and plug in some important data into the data set, I can't do that with Power BI. So why not bring a Power App directly inside of Power BI so that they can not only visualize the data, but also act on the data. Now, the beauty is when you add that Power App inside of Power BI, the data set in Power BI, which is read-only, can be passed to the Power App, which is living inside that Power BI report. And because I can pass the data set, if I was to filter my data in Power BI, automatically that filtered result set will be available in Power Apps as well. And to top that, if I perform any operations on my data from the Power App, I also have the ability to dynamically refresh the Power BI report experience. So imagine a scenario in which the sales rep comes in to the Power App, makes a change to the data set and clicks submit. The Power App updates the backend data service, but not just that, it also refreshes the Power BI report. And it creates this near real-time refresh experience for users. Now we can bring in Power Apps into Power BI, but we can go the other way around as well. We can bring Power BI into Power Apps, and you could have numerous use cases around that as well. Remember, Power Apps is where you act on your data. It's not designed for data visualization, but Power BI is. So why not bring in those visuals inside our Power Apps? And for that, we have a special control in Power Apps, which is called the Power BI tile. With this, you can dynamically load tiles in Power Apps from multiple Power BI reports. There is a new feature that was announced a couple of months ago. It's called the new API feature, which allows us to even bring an entire Power BI report directly into Power Apps. You can even filter the Power BI reports and tiles that you bring into Power Apps directly from Power Apps. So those are the two integration capabilities that are provided, and they go both ways: Power BI in Power Apps or Power App in Power BI. And on very similar lines, we also have integration capabilities between Power BI and Power Automate. Just like we have the Power App visual, we also have the Power BI visual. Same scenario. We can pass the data set. If I filter the data set in Power BI, Power Automate will be will be aware of that. And if the user was to initiate the flow directly from the Power BI report, the automation process will begin. On the other side, we can bring in data from Power BI inside Power Automate. And for that, we have the following triggers and actions that are provided for us. We can trigger a flow when a Power BI data-driven alert is triggered, or we can trigger a flow directly from Power BI when the user clicks on a button inside the Power BI report. We have a lot of actions where we can add rows to a data set. We can export the Power BI reports directly to files. So these are the integration capabilities that are provided for us within this platform. And before I head over to demo, just to touch base on this slide once again, because this is one of the key aspects, is that the center point is my data, which could be anything. And we've seen how Power BI can talk to Power Apps and Power Automate. There are also ways in which Power Apps and Power Automate can talk to each other. There are ways in which Power Virtual Agents can talk to Power Automate. So there are these integration capabilities that are there for us to leverage. And the beauty is when all of these come together. So let's try and look at all of this in the form of demos. I will try and cover a live demo first. Once I complete that demo, I will show you two powerful use cases in which you can leverage all of these components together and create some amazing experiences. So I'm going to switch over now to Power BI. And once again, I'll need a confirmation if you guys can see my Power BI desktop.
Yes, everything is seen. Yes.
Perfect. All right. And I am sure as I go through this process, there would be questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to paste it on chat. At the end of the session, I promise I'll keep some time allocated for us to have some Q&A. Okay. So here I am on Power BI desktop. And before I get into Power BI desktop, remember, what's the key? The key is data. The key is your data and what you want to do with your data. So let's take a very simple use case. I am leveraging Microsoft Dataverse as my data source. I'll keep repeating, this could be any data source of your choice. SharePoint, SQL, Excel, it's your choice. Now here, I have a table called devices. Okay, so it's a table in a database. It's called devices. And as part of this table, I have some information. And let's say I am an organization in which we procure devices and hand it out to our users who are consultants. So I need to track all the devices that are coming in and going out. I need to track my list of inventory of devices. I need to know who the device is currently assigned to. I need to know what's the status of the device, what type of device is it, and a lot of other pieces of information that we are tracking inside our database. So think about this as a simple table in a database. In my case, I'm leveraging Microsoft Dataverse. And in order for me to connect to Microsoft Dataverse from Power BI desktop, what I need is something known as the environment ID. Now, this differs based on a data source. So if I go to Power BI desktop and say I want to get data, you see you have plenty of options here to choose from. My data is in Dataverse, so I'm going to select this. And right here, it's going to ask me for the URL of the environment. My table is in a specific environment, so I'm going to pick the environment. I'm going to copy the environment URL, head over to Power BI desktop, plug that in right here. Now, before I hit OK, in Power BI, you can connect to your data source in two modes, import and direct query. Import imports the data and the schema, both the schema and the data into the Power BI service. And there's another option called direct query, wherein it directly connects to your data source. It just imports the schema, not the data. The difference here is in case of import, you got to keep refreshing your database, and how many refreshes you can make depends upon the license that you have. There are limits here. In direct query, you can keep refreshing your data source as many times as you want. Of course, import is more performant than direct query. In this scenario, because Microsoft Dataverse supports direct query, I'm going to take advantage of that and connect to this specific environment in direct query mode. Now, the moment I did this, and if I click OK, it's going to try and connect to that specific environment. And once it does, it's going to list out all the tables that are available. I will go ahead and pick my specific table of devices. So I'm going to select this. It's going to show me a preview, short preview of the data, and I'm going to click on load. The moment I do this, Power BI is going to start connecting to that data source, and specifically because it's direct query, it's going to try and connect just to the schema and bring that schema into Power BI desktop as a data set. And we can see that happening in action right here. On the right-hand side, we have this option called fields. This is my data set, and these are all the fields which are available in my table. Now, the use case here that I'm trying to showcase is integration. So the focus is not going to be on creating visually appealing Power BI reports, but I'll show you those in demos later. So here I'm just going to quickly add a couple of simple visuals. So let's say I want to show the device name. I want to show the device status, the type of the device, and maybe I want to show the ID of the device. I want to show these pieces of information. So right here, if I was to stress this, it's going to get me the data from my data source. Great. These are the devices, statuses. It's getting it from my table. And let's say I want to add a pie chart visual as well. And here I will show the device status. So I just plug this in right here. I only have 3 statuses available, assigned, and repair. So it creates this pie chart experience for me right here. So this is where Power BI comes in. You can add plenty of visuals that are available here. And there are many other things we can do. Now, in my case, I want to go to Power BI service and connect it to Power Apps. I can do it from here as well. But the reason I'm not doing it is because I have noticed that there are certain caveats with this approach. Sometimes it times out, sometimes it doesn't connect to Power Apps. So I recommend you do this in the service itself. So once you've built your dashboard, just going to go ahead and click publish. I'm going to click save. I'm going to give this a name. I'm going to call this RD devices data or RD devices RP. I'll click save. So this is going to save my workspace. I'll save my report. It's going to ask me which workspace I want to publish this in. I'll select my workspace and publish this out to the Power BI service. Now, if I head over to the Power BI service, which is app.powerbi.com, right here, if I go to my workspace, in this workspace, the report that I just published is available right here, including my data set. If I select this report, it's going to open up that same report experience for me that I had in Power BI Desktop now in the Power BI service because I published it. So this should now load up those same visualizations. Now, once we have this set up right here, this is Power BI, great for visualizing data. I can slice and dice my data as well. So for example, if I select in repair, it's going to filter and show me just the devices that are currently in repair. And I can add filters and many other good stuff as well on the right-hand side. Our focus here is on integration. Now, in order for me to act on my data, so let's say my environment or my device admins or my IT team is maintaining the statuses, right? So let's say a device was in repair, they received the device, they want to change the status. They want to make a change to the data. They cannot do that in Power BI. They can't do that. But now, thanks to the Power Apps visual, we can do certain things. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Power Apps visual here. The moment I do this, it will add the Power BI visual to my report. And the key here is for me to pass data from Power BI to Power Apps. And the way I can do that is I can select my Power BI or my Power App visual. And from my data set, I can decide which fields I would like to pass. So I want to pass the device ID, the name. I would like to pass the device status, the device type. I would like to pass the photo of the device. And I can pick any other data points of my choice right here that I would like to pass from Power BI to my Power App. Once I'm done selecting the data points that I would like to pass to my Power App visual, you will observe how the visual has changed its behavior because now it knows that you're passing some data. And when you do that, it's going to ask you a question. Do you want to choose an existing app so you connect to it, or do you want to create a brand new app? In this case, I'll go and create a brand new application. When I click that button, it will start launching the Power Apps Studio experience for me in order for us to go and create a Power App. Because I have created this Power App directly from the Power App visual inside of Power BI, this Power App will get some special powers. And one of the special power that it gets is right here, something known as Power BI integration object. That's the ability that it gets. And I want to show you this right here. So on the left-hand side, we can see it right here. It's called Power BI integration. This is not available in regular Power Apps that you build. You will only get it if you go through the approach that I demoed today. Now, from this object, if you notice, we also get a screen that has a gallery, and this gallery has data. Where is this data coming from? The data or the items of the gallery is coming from right here, Power BI integration.data. That means the data is coming from my Power BI object or my Power BI data set. This data will be read only. Why? Because the Power BI data set is read only. That's how it works. It's by design. And this is a Power App. So I am free to make any changes right here. So let's say I pick up the steel theme. Maybe I add a label right here on the top. I can create pixel perfect apps using Power Apps. So I'm going to call this my devices. Maybe I center align this. I apply some fill color and so on and so forth. And right here in the gallery experience, if I go and change the layout, so let's say I pick this one, title, subtitle, and image, here I can get more details about the data. And what are the details I can plug in here? So if I do this item dot, this will show the list of all the fields that I selected to pass from my Power BI dataset to my Power App. So you see that same list is available here. I have all those properties. So let's say I want to show the device ID. I pick device ID. If I play this app, that's the device ID. The device name, the status, and the ID. All of them are available right here. I had also passed the photo. So here I have an image control. If I change this to this item dot the picture, I should have the images of the device also pop up on the screen right here. And this is Power Apps. I can do anything with this. I can create some amazing pixel perfect experiences. In the interest of time, the demo is focused on integration. So let's assume this is where I stop with my home screen. Now I want the user to make changes. Now before that, I want the user to select a specific record for which they want to make the change. And I already have this little icon symbol right here. This is the right icon. When the user selects this, I want to present the user with a form based upon my table so that they can make some changes to it. And Power Apps has a template exactly for that. It's called the form template. So I'm going to go ahead and you can see this in action right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick this template. It's going to create the screen. I'm going to give this a title. I'll call this my device form. There is a little X icon here. When the user selects this, I want to navigate back to the previous screen. So back. This is the form control. Here comes the key point. The data set in Power BI is read only. I cannot change that. But this is Power Apps. I can connect to my data source directly from Power Apps as well. And I can do that by going to data sources. I can go to add data. And right here, if I search for my table, that's my table of devices. If I click it, it's going to connect to that table right here inside Power Apps. Reza, I'm using SharePoint. I'm using SQL. No problem. Go right here. Right at the bottom, you will see this option here for connectors. If I select connectors, this will list out all the connectors. So if your data source is SharePoint, search for SharePoint. If your data source is SQL, search for SQL. There are over 540 plus connectors available that you can leverage and bring data in from. In my case, my data source was Microsoft Dataverse, highlighted with this green universe icon. Okay, so I have a form. If I connect this form to the Power BI dataset, it's not going to work because the dataset is read-only. But if I connect to this data service or database directly that I have connected in my app, I can perform CRUD operations. So I'm going to select this. And now what this is going to do is it's going to create a form based on the columns in my data source. And I can select which fields I would like to present here so that the user can make modifications to it. So I don't want to show the created field. I can remove, I can add, I can reorder. All these are native behaviors of Power Apps. So here's my form control completely built out. And when the user clicks on this submit button, it's going to go ahead and submit the form. It's going to submit the data that's in this form to the database, which in this case is devices that I've directly connected from Power Apps. Now, one thing here, if I was to play this app, this will go away. But if I go into edit mode, I see it in action. The reason is because this form control has something known as a mode. And the mode here is edit. Basically, I'm trying to edit the form. If I'm trying to edit something, I have to give the context of that item. So if I go to the item property, you will observe that the item property is empty. So which item do I want the user to edit? Well, that depends upon the item that the user selects in screen number 1. So when the user clicks on this icon symbol here, I want to do a few things. First thing, the form that I created in that second screen, which is called edit form 1, that's the name of the form. I'm going to reset that form and I'm going to set the mode of that form to edit because I want to edit the form. I want to create an edit experience. And once I do this, I'm going to navigate the user. There's a function called navigate the user to my second screen, which is called screen 2. So if I play the app and if I select this, it takes me to screen 2. But I don't see any item. Why? Because we are yet to plug in the item property. And the item property here would be as follows. I have to give the context of the exact item in my database. My database is devices. I need one item. So I'm going to look up into my database, and this is very similar to Excel. Look up the devices table where the device ID, there's a column called device ID, is equal to, now where do I get the ID from? The gallery has that information. So I can say gallery dot selected, whatever the user had selected, dot, I had passed the property of device ID. Now, when I do this, it will try and look up that item inside my database based on the selected item of the gallery. This is coming from Power BI. This is coming from my database. If I preview this, now it shows me the data that's actually coming in from the backend system. If I click X, it'll take me back. If I pick Acer Aspire MA, if I select this, the form will change to show me that specific data. And this is Power Apps. We can perform CRUD operations. So here I can add, update, delete, I can do anything. In this case, I am just showcasing updating data. So if I was to make a change here and click submit, it will update the data in my database. The form control has a property called on success. So once you click submit, if it succeeds, if the operation is successful, what do you want to do? I want to take the user to a success screen. So I'm going to add another screen called success. And here for my form control on success, all I would like to do is navigate the user to that success screen, which is screen number 3. And in the success screen, when the user clicks on this icon, I will take the user or navigate the user back to my home screen, which is screen number 1. So now if we were to connect the dots, this is Power BI. I select, this is actually data coming from my database. If I was to make any change here, so let's say I change the status of this to in repair. Okay, I'm going to change the status manually to in repair. It's no longer assigned to Reza. And if I click submit, this will go and update the data in my database. But if I go back to my home screen, the status has not changed. You can see it right here. I made a change. If I go back to the item, I see the change. But when I see this gallery, I don't see the change. Why? Because this data is coming from Power BI. And this data is coming from my database. So how do I refresh my data that's coming in from Power BI? Well, we have a function for that as well. When I click on the submit button, I'm submitting the form. Once the form successfully submits, I am navigating the user to my success screen. But I want to also refresh my Power BI report. And for that, there is a native function called Power BI integration.refresh. That's all I need to do. And this will work only and only if my data source is connected in direct query mode. If my mode of querying was not direct query, if it was import query, then this refresh function will not work. I will have to call a flow from Power Apps to initiate a refresh, and I'm limited to how many refreshes I can make. In this case, I have unlimited refreshes, so I can just keep calling this function. So does this mean it's going to work now? Let's test it out. I'm going to preview this one. I'm going to go here. I have said it's in repair, but it did not change. Let's try and submit it again. Success. Let's go here. Still did not change, even though I said refresh the visual. Now, why did it not refresh? Well, because right now I am in the edit experience of the Power App in the studio. I am not in Power BI. It will only refresh when I'm running the app in the context of Power BI. So in order for me to test it, I will have to first go ahead and very, very important, save the flow. So I'm going to give this flow a name. I'm going to save my flow. You have to do that. Very, very important. So this goes ahead and saves the flow. And once this flow is saved, now if I head back to Power BI, you will see a change. The Power BI report is trying to connect to that Power App that we created. And if I go ahead and save my Power BI report, which is another very important step that you have to take, you will observe how that Power App is being loaded right here inside of the Power BI report. This is extremely, extremely powerful, right? So here's my Power App inside the context of my Power BI report. Now let's try and refresh the entire Power BI report. So we can see this all in action in one go. So let's check this out. Here I have a Power BI report and I have a Power App that's living inside a Power BI report. The data that we see in this gallery is coming from Power BI. Reza, prove it. Okay, let's say I filter on in repair. I just clicked in repair. So right now it's highlighting in repair. Observe the Power App. The behavior of the Power App has changed. It's now showing me only 3 items because I'm filtering on in repair. You see that? This also includes the item that I have just changed. So let's try and make a change now. I'm going to click Acer Aspire MA. And let's say this device was in repair. It's come back. So now this device is available. So I'm changing the status. Now, before I hit this submit button, I want you to keep an eye on a few things. Keep an eye on this visual and keep an eye on this visual. You will notice things changing on the fly. Why? Because when I submit, I'm doing 2 things. One, I'm making a change in my data source, in my actual table, in my database, and I'm also initiating a refresh of my Power BI report. So for the user, it's a near real-time experience. Check this out. The number here is 3. That means there are 3 items that are in repair. I changed this to available, so this number should change to 2. Let's check it out. I click submit. The data is submitted in my data source, plus there's a refresh. And check this out live. This changed to 2. This also changed to 2. And if I go back to my home screen now, I don't even see that option. Why? Because I've filtered my data based on in repair. If I move out of this, once again, everything changes and I can see that item right here at the top says is available. So what did we just do? We added the ability of the user to even make a modification to the data that they are visualizing in Power BI directly in the context of Power BI. And on very, very similar lines, just like I added this experience for Power App, I can also add an experience for Flow. So let's try and first get some real estate here. So I'm just going to place this on the right for now. We also have a Power Automate visual. So I'm going to connect to this. Same steps as Power BI. Connect to this, decide what you want to pass. I want to pass the device name, the device status, and the device type. That's it. Just want to pass this 3 pieces of information. Okay, you're passing this to this visual. Now what? Select the 3 ellipses and go to edit. Now it opens up the Power Automate experience for us directly inside of Power BI. I want to create an automation process. So let's create a new one. Let's create a new instant run. So I want to instantly call the flow when the user clicks a button in Power BI. Which button? I'll show you. Right here, if I was to just add a very simple compose action, which acts like a variable, I want to show you something here. There's something called as dynamic content. In here, if you observe, we have a lot of data points that we can capture from that Power BI button clicked event. We have the ID of the user who clicks the button, the name of the user, the email, the date and time at which they clicked on the button. Plus, I have the data points or the fields that I decided to pass from my Power BI data set to my Power Automate flow. So I have all that information here. And very quickly, just to create one very simple experience, I'm going to use a function called create HTML table. So I'm going to use this. This needs an array. I'm going to give it array of data. And right here, I'm going to send an email. And I'm going to use the send an email action. So send an email to the person who has clicked the button. And the subject is data from Power BI. Remember, we are just testing right now. And in the body of the email, I'll put that HTML table. I'll give my flow a name, sample flow data. I click save. So I've just built my flow and saved my flow in the Power Automate service. This is not yet connected to the Power BI visual. To do that, you have to take an additional step, and that step is right here. It's called save and apply. So I'm going to select this. It's going to save this flow, of course, and apply it to my button. And you should get this message that says your flow has been applied to the button. Which button? Let's go back to the Power BI report, this button. So it creates this clickable button experience in the visual for the user. Now let's try this out. I'm going to save the flow or the report and just refresh. Now let's check this out in action. Here I'm visualizing Power BI data. I have a Power App. Let's say I want to know all the devices that are assigned. So I'm going to click on assign. So I'm basically filtering my data. I have 11 devices that are assigned. Power Apps will only show those 11 devices. So does the Power BI visuals. Now, if I go and click on run flow, you see it says triggering. So what's happening right now is it's gone ahead and triggered that flow. And what that flow will do is it's going to get the data from Power BI and then send out an email to the individual who created that flow, which was me. And it sends me a report of all the data that was contextually available inside of Power BI. So check that out in action. A flow that's contextually aware of Power BI data, an app that's contextually aware of Power BI data, all of them living and breathing together inside this one amazing experience. So this was an example or a live example or a live demo of how quickly you can build experiences like this. Now let me show you one real world use case. I actually did this for one of my customers. The use case was different, but I wanted to build a demo. So I built something called as desk reservation, a very common request in a lot of organizations wherein users can come in and make reservations for desks. So here I have a Power BI report, and you will see all the different components loading up magically now. Right here in the center, I have a Power App. So this is my Power App. This is my flow. This is a visual inside of Power BI. So Power BI has a visual called Visio. Now here, the Power App is contextually aware of who the logged in user is. It knows that Reza has logged in. And Reza does not have any upcoming reservations. So let's say this is my office space and I'm interested in reserving a desk. Now check this out in action. Look at how powerful this is. This Visio visual, I can zoom in, zoom out. But one additional thing I can do is I can actually click on the shapes. So let's say I'm interested in desk number 7. So I'm going to select this. You see how it zoomed in or panned in to zoom into desk number 7. Now observe the Power App. Keep an eye on the Power App. I'm not doing anything. When I clicked desk 7, it's actually filtering the data set in my Power BI report based on desk 7. And that filtered information is being contextually passed over to the Power App as well. And once the Power App comes to know about it, it's a little slow because of my license. But once it comes to know about it, check what happened there. Power Apps knows that desk number 7 has been selected in that Visio diagram. So now it's asking me to reserve the desk, just the desk number 7, since that's the desk I'm interested in. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a date. Let's say I want this desk on the 27th. I click submit. Now, the moment I click submit, observe these dashboards. They're going to change. Same concept as I showed you earlier. I submit the data to my data source, and then I initiate a refresh of my Power BI visual. All of this data is coming from Microsoft Dataverse, connected in direct query mode. So that's the beauty of this solution, is that I can have users interact with the data, visualize the data here in forms of reports of Visio diagrams, and then I have the Power App, which allows them to book a desk or reserve a desk. And if the user ever needs a report about something, so for example, desk number 7, right? I've just clicked desk 7, so it's gone ahead and filtered my data. If I need a report of what's happening with the reservations, I just click this flow button. The flow gets triggered. The flow goes ahead and queries the data source. And here are all the desk reservation details that were made ever for desk number 7. This desk was reserved by these users on these dates. So I have a full report of what happened with that desk as well. These are some powerful capabilities that we get when we use these integration features. I know you'll have questions. I promise I'll take them. Just let me finish the next part and then I'll open the floor up. So I showed you Power BI inside Power Apps, but can I go the other way around, right? Can I have information from Power BI being brought into Power Apps? Can I go the other way? And the answer is yes. So this time I am in the Power App service wherein I'm making an app. And here in Power BI, I'll go to my workspace. Let me go to my workspaces. Come on. I have some dashboards here. Let's pick any dashboard. Let's pick this one, customer profitability dashboard. Okay. Now in Power App, if you go to insert and go to charts, we have an option right here called Power BI tile. If I select this, it will only give you the option to pick a workspace. So let's say I pick my workspace. Then you can pick a dashboard. You have to have a dashboard. So I'll pick a dashboard, and then you have to pick a tile. So then it will show you that data right here. It will show you that specific tile right here inside of Power Apps. So you could only do this. You can only get one tile. So if I have a dashboard with 10 tiles, and if I want to bring it all in, well, add this control 10 times, and it's a pretty painful experience. But guess what? Now you can bring in full reports as well. So here, let's take my desk reservation itself as an example. Here now, if I go to file and if I go to, share, not share, let me try and zoom in first. I'm getting a little confused. So if I go here to edit, I think I'm in the dashboard experience. Let me switch over to my workspace again. So let me go to my workspaces. Let's go back to home. Let's pick my desk reservation report. All right. And here I go to export, or I believe it was file. If I go to embed report, we have this option where you can embed this report into like SharePoint or website, or have it publicly available. In this case, let's say I pick website. Now this link that you get here right on the top, if I just copy this link, right, this link, if I just go ahead and just grab this entire link, if I go to the Power App, I don't have the option to paste a link here, but if I go to the data tab on the right-hand side, you see there's something called data. If I just select this, it puts a formula on the top called tile URL. And here you can plug in that URL that you just copied, and you have to put it under double quotes. Once you do this, now if you observe, this is actually like Inception going on, by the way. I'm in a Power App that has a Power BI report that has another Power App inside it. So think about this. I bought that entire desk reservation system, or in short, I bought an entire Power BI report inside the context of Power Apps. And that's something really, really neat that what you could do. So let me show you an example of an experience around this as well. A very common use case, something known as inventory management, right? You have inventory coming in, coming out. So let's say I am a fitness-based organization, and I have a storage space wherein I maintain all the fitness inventory, barbells, dumbbells. They come in, they go out. And as the inventory manager or as the inventory admin of that particular space, I need to provide the users an app so they can view what's happening in that storage facility. So first, let me walk through the app, and then I can talk about the different components. So here I can see my storage facility visual. I can see the visual right here. I can zoom in, zoom out. So you would have guessed this is Visio. And I can, of course, make selection so it will directly zoom in. Now, remember I said if you add Power BI inside of Power Apps, you can even filter the data. So check this out. I'm only interested in space A, C, D, G, H. The moment I do this, if you observe the Power BI visual inside of Power Apps, it's going to actually filter the data. Check this out. It's filtered the data. It's only showcasing these 6 spaces or these 5 spaces. And these spaces are color coded, by the way. And that coloring is also dynamic based on how many spaces are available. If you observe space H, I'm going to try and zoom in. This is dark red in color. Space G is orange in color. And the reason is because space H is almost out of space. Space G has 20 spaces out of 50. So it's beginning to fill up. Let's pick space G. In this space, I have an adjustable utility bench and an Olympic barbell, dumbbells or whatever, barbell. I have 20 of these. Let's say my inventory got updated. This thing moved out. So I'm going to set this to 0. So this thing goes away. And these benches have also moved out. So this space has become empty. Right? We deposit or we send this out to a specific fitness center because they asked for it. My inventory is now empty. I've updated my inventory. Now, if I go back here, you will observe a change. Space G, the color was orange because it was filling up, but now it's full of space. So if you observe right here, the color of the space has changed to green, right? Dynamic. Now, how did I create an experience like this? Well, firstly, this is nothing but the Power BI tile control. And we can see that right here on the left-hand side, it's that tile control. And if I go to data, just like I did earlier, this has a link directly to my Power BI report. And which report is this? Well, if I go back to my data source, I should have one called RD Fitness. This is that report. And in this, I have a Microsoft Visio diagram. And this report has two tabs. One is called facility map. The other one is a tree map. So I've used two visuals. If I go to the Power App, I actually get that other tab as well, right here at the bottom. You see this? If I select this, it will change over to that tab. And it's contextually aware of the data. 5 items selected. These are the spaces. So these are the 5 spaces it is showcasing. How is it filtering the data though, based on a selection that I've made inside of Power Apps, right? This is Power Apps. Well, by using query string filtering. Now this, I will admit, is a little on the complex side because you need to be aware of the schema of your data set. So here I'm actually checking to see if there is any filters that the user has provided. If yes, then go and filter this table, this column with the data that the user has selected inside that combo box. So it's a little bit, there are some additional steps here that you would have to take, but if you plug it in correctly, you can filter the data as well in this visual directly from Power Apps. And then all I had to do was in Power Apps, just like before, connect to my data source. These are my data sources. All of them are tables inside Microsoft Dataverse. So when the user is actually making changes here, they're actually making changes to this form. And this is nothing but that same form control that I demonstrated earlier. Here's my form. See this? It's a form control that is connected to the data source, which is my actual database table called inventory data. So the user is making changes inside the database, but those changes are being reflected in the Power BI report live right here. So if you work with all of these services together, you have the ability then to create experiences like these, wherein you can leverage the powers of all of these services independently and bring them all together. Remember, I can't visualize data in Power Apps. I can't have visual diagrams. So what? You can bring it from Power BI. I can't perform CRUD operations with Power BI. No problem. I'll bring in Power Apps. I can't send reports. I can't have an approval process. Whenever a change is made, I need some approvals to take place. I need flow. No problem. Bring in flow. I need a chatbot so users can check what's going on with the inventory or what's happening in the desk reservation. No problem. Bring in Power Virtual Agents as well. So bring in and leverage the entire platform in one go to create such experiences. And that covers my demos. And now I want to make sure that I open up the floor for Q&A. I hope the demos were useful.
Exactly. So I would like to thank you, Reza, and sorry for the disconnection at the beginning of the session, but I'm very happy that we could manage, or actually thanking to you, we could manage this session. So during your session, I have noted some questions. With your permission, I would like to deliver this question to you.
Absolutely.
So, okay, and of course, people who ask this question can unmute themselves and ask. So first question from Wafa Attar, who was asking that to make Power Apps refresh Power BI, do we need Power Automate? And then, yes, that was the question. And Christian Prifty commented that, yes, any action taken between the three is taken through Power Automate. This is what was first question and first comment.
So to answer that question, do I need Power Automate to refresh? If you saw my demo, no. I initiated the refresh directly from Power Apps. Now, What's the catch? The catch is your data source has to be in direct query mode. And when I'm actually refreshing, I'm not refreshing the data set. I'm just refreshing the visuals that are connected in direct query mode. So technically, am I initiating a refresh? Yes. But that only works when your data set in Power BI is connected in direct query. If it was connected in import mode, so let's take SharePoint as an example. SharePoint, you cannot connect to SharePoint in direct query mode. So in that case, when I submitted that data, I had to refresh my data set because I want Power BI to show the changes. So for that, I can't use Power Apps. I have to use Power Automate. So I can call a flow from Power Apps to initiate that trigger. So the answer is yes and no.
Okay. So the second question is from Christian Prifty, who asks that if we would have selected import, would query folding work with Dataverse as a source?
I'll be honest here. Reza is not a Power BI expert, but Reza knows how to integrate things together. So will query folding work? I am not sure. There's another Reza who will answer you this question, though. His name is Reza Rad. So if you haven't connected with Reza Rad, he is the king of Power BI. So my answer here I would be lying if I just give you an answer. So I'm not sure about that. That's my answer.
Okay. And the third question is from Wafa Attar. Actually, you were showing, demonstrating something, and Wafa Attar asked that, can we add more fields later on?
Yes. You can head back to the Power BI report, go to edit, and once again, you can select that visual and add additional fields. So if there were specific fields that you missed out, you can always go back and make the change. You have that ability. Good question.
Yes, and Wafa went asking the next question and saying that creating the app in Power Apps versus creating the app first, then connect to it from Power BI.
Yeah,
I think you got the point. That was the last question.
Yeah. So the answer to this is you could go either ways. So if you noticed when I added the Power App visual and when I selected the data points or the fields that I wanted to pass from the Power BI data set, when I did that, it asked me a question. Do you want to create a new app or do you want to connect to an existing app? If you have an existing app, that's where you can go and connect to it. Otherwise, you can create a new app right there. So you have both those options available. What would I choose? If I was to start from scratch like I did, I would choose the option that I demonstrated, which is build the app directly from the Power BI report. So you have that connection object in there. If you have an app that's already created, you will have to do a lot of rework because when you connect it to Power BI, you will get that data set and you'll have to start reconnecting.
Okay. So that was my colleague. Let me ask his question. He is asking that, can we use and integrate custom HTML and CSS template in Power BI app?
So when you say Power BI app, I'm assuming you're talking about Power Apps inside Power BI. So Power Apps is allows you to create custom apps, pixel perfect apps. So when you say HTML, there is an HTML control, but more or less you'll be adding multiple controls to create that experience. So can you do that? Yes. CSS is not an option today. There is something known as theming in a Power App that is in the roadmap. It's announced, so I can officially mention that it is in the roadmap. It's coming soon. Once that ability comes in, then you can create themes for your Power Apps, which is basically like adding CSS.
Okay, so that was the last question. And really, I appreciate your contribution to the community. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I appreciate it. And if people don't mind, I kindly ask to turn on your cameras. I would like to take a picture, and then I will tell you bye. I hope there are enough people who will dare it. Okay, so yes, hi Claudia, by the way, welcome. So let's wait for a while, and if nobody turns on the camera, so no problem. So I'm just going to, okay. So that's it. Once again, if you have, I think, Christian briefed also, just Just a minute. Let me take it once again. That's all. Okay, thank you for this. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining. So once again, Reza Dorrani, I appreciate your contribution really, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this session, and it will be very useful in their next, let's say, career or works. That's all.
Oh, thank you.
So,
thank you for
thank you very
inviting
much.
me.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
bye.
it.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.